Welcome back. It's been a long break for TLG. I thought it'd be fun to make an episode going into this new 2028 season. Now that we're in the ninth year of starting this TLG, almost a decade through, lots have changed. And so today's episode, we're going to be looking at some of the biggest changes from the offseason. I figured I would pretty much dedicate an entire episode to Alex just because he made so many moves this offseason. I know for a lot of people don't quite put in all the hours that some others do. It's tough to keep up with some of the moves. Alex has been wild this offseason. I absolutely love to see it. He has completely changed the dynamic of his whole baseball team, and you could probably dedicate a whole 20, 30 minutes just to him. So today's episode, we'll kind of go over some of the mega deals from some other teams, and then mainly Alex, and then I'll do more of a preview episode tonight. I meant to do a lot more today, but I slept like a degenerate for like 14 hours. I was tired from work. So we'll just have a couple minutes here to go over, some of the highlight moves here. So biggest move of the offseason for Alex, well, there's been a couple, but he picked up two ace starting pitchers. One of them was Louis Patino. Louis Patino, in my opinion, is a top three pitcher in TLG right now. After some changes the last couple of years, he's stayed on top. Consistently been dominant. He's gotten 30 WAR all in TLG history. Started his career with a Cy Young and Rookie of the Year, I'm pretty sure, that first year. And then had 5 WAR season, almost a 2 WAR season, 3 WAR season, almost a 6 WAR season, 4.5 WAR season, almost a 5 WAR season. So the guy's pitched 1,300 innings in TLG, not ever played less than 30 games ever since that first year. He was probably in the minors. The dude is an absolute weapon. The guy just does not let up home runs. He's only ever once let up more than 1 home run per 9. So the combination of him in Pittsburgh Stadium with a usually pretty solid defense is just going to be absolutely deadly. I would not be surprised one bit if he won the Cy Young. The guy is an elite player. San Diego is going to be rebuilding, so they gave up a few of their stars. Him, and we'll talk about the right fielder they gave up in just a minute here. And got a ton of prospects in return. So hopefully one of those guys can turn out to be good. San Diego is going to take the long game and be patient with some prospects, and we'll see how that turns out. So in the meantime, they give up the 28-year-old superstar Patino to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh had two superstar pitchers in the last couple seasons, and then they both started to regress quite a bit with their age. Jack Flaherty is still the stud, but the other two they had were the elite Abreu, and then they had Shane Beaver. And Abreu really lost a lot of control. He was super elite, maybe the best ratings in the game as a pitcher, just ridiculous, like 75 stuff or 65 movement, like 60 control or something. So he lost about 15 control. He's all the way down to 40 control now, and he walked like 13-15% of batters last year, so he's starting to lose it with his age as control. His ratings were so elite, even though he dropped about 30%, he's still like ridiculous. I should probably show you as I'm talking about it here, but as you can see, the ratings have gone from like 80 stuff, 75 stuff as a starting pitcher to 60, so they lost about 20 points, and he's lost about 15 in control, and you can see it in the stats too. Like he always walked about single digits, like 7, 6, 8 in all his dominant seasons, and 6%, 8%, and then he started the last couple of years to lose control, and his walk rates went up to about 14, 15, 14%. So the wild pitches last year, especially, is like 7. Just that 1 year in Pittsburgh, and all the other years was like 3, 2. So you just start to see that control window a little bit. So hopefully it doesn't go down even more for the Dodgers. But his ratings are so good, he's still, like, with those ratings, a solid pitcher, but not the superstar he was that needed to carry Alex's team. So he moved on from him, and then Shane Beaver started to lose a little bit too. Shane Beaver, I don't know how to spell Beaver, even though I'm Canadian. Shane Beaver lost about 10 points out of his control also, and then my scout says, and then about 10 points from his stuff from a couple years ago. So he's still really good though, like 55, 45, 65. The guy got injured a little bit last year, but pretty much his most recent season, he still had a 3.5 FIP and only walked 2% of guys. So even if he's walking like 5, 6% of guys, he still strike out about 20% of guys, and hopefully he can keep those home run numbers down a little bit. That's what really killed him last year. His FIP would have been way lower if that 1.8 was lower. So I know that's 45 movement's not great, but a lot of pitchers have 45 movement. So he is more of a mid-tier guy now, probably more of like a 2, 3, 4 pitcher rather than the ace he was. But still solid. Should be pretty good for the Mets. Really good fit there in that stadium, but not the superstars they had. So he really wanted to go out and update. So he got Louis Patino to head the staff. And then the other huge move he made was Sorry, I should talk about the return for Louis Patino first before we do this. So in return for Louis Patino, he got some nice prospects San Diego did. So San Diego picked up John Bucco, who has a ridiculous overall profile. He's got 65 range. He can play all three outfield spots already at his young age there. Really good runner, 70 speed, almost 50 power potential. I'll see if he can get there, probably about 40, 45. The guy's solid gap power, which is good in San Diego. Really good contact. So if you have a guy with 65 range, almost a 5-tool player, just probably missing a little bit of power, or else he'd pretty much be a 5-tool player. Got 65 avoid K6 contact, so he should hit for really high batting averages. Hit 308 in rookie last year. Should be a guy that hits like 275 with a bunch of doubles, couple triples. So spray hitter for ground ball, which is good with that kind of speed. Should get some nice ground ball singles there. Guys should be a really solid player. Looks like a major leaguer to me, and it's already got like a major league level eye and contact tools. Really just missing the home run power. So essentially, this guy's very advanced. He could probably be in Double-A by the end of the year. Almost major league ready right now. Like he can play a really good center field defense in the majors. So really nice prospect getting back there. The other high end guy was Dewhurst here. Dewhurst is huge ceiling. The guy has crazy 65 movement, 70 control. There, if you search all TLG for those two things with those potentials, there would not be more than 2 or 3 guys that have 65 movement, 70 control potentials. We can actually do a test right now real quick, just out of curiosity. So you go to customize, and we'll go to choose, and we'll go to pitch ratings, and we'll go to control potential, and then add one, and then we'll go to movement potential. So if you make those both 65, there's not many guys on this list that fit that description. Only a couple of them are starting pitchers here. So you got 18-year-old Mike Vaughn here, superstar prospect for this next draft. Looks like a beast. You got John Pittman, one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. And then you got Chris Marshall, another really, really good prospects for one of these drafts coming up here. Keep your eye on him. You got Mike Jenkins, who is a second-round pick from the draft, and he has skyrocketed since he's been drafted. Crazy progression here. So it's a very high ceiling type guys. Isaac Escada, who we'll talk about next. In Pittsburgh, that was the other big ace they picked up, and then Barrios has that. So you got a lot of really good pitcher on this list. You got a couple of Indie League guys, only 35 stuff there. And then you get another 35 stuff guy in Zach Neal. Gus Riddell's on that list. A really good pickup for Chicago here. Nice middle reliever. And Soroka's on the list here. A couple of lower stuff guys, you notice. And then the guy who's like the number one prospect in all baseball a year ago, before he lost his eligibility there, is Schroeder here. So yeah, that's a really, really impressive combination to have there. I'm going to get rid of that filter before I forget. So back to Pittsburgh. So the other huge pickup they made was picking up Isaac Escada. Let's see where he is here. Is he still on the Mets in our game? I don't know if the trade's actually gone through. Let's see here. Maybe he's in his DFA. Yeah. So Isaac Escada is insane. He's also probably a top 7 pitcher in TLG. I had him somewhere around there. I had him as like the 7th or 8th ranked pitcher in the league, in my opinion. But anyways, he's right up there as the best lefty in the game, pretty much next to Adrian Morjon. The guy is so consistent. If you look, he's pitched at least 30 games pretty much, except for that one year, all in the Mets uniform. He's had 4.83, 4.6, 4.0, 4.3. If you look at his ratios, they're just deadly consistent. He's always right around a mid 3 FIPS, lower end of that usually. The guy always lets up a few home runs. As you can see, those two are just not going to let up many home runs. Patino and Escada, it's going to be a crazy combination in Pittsburgh. He's always walking at either 6 or 4%, and 3 years in a row at low 4s is just crazy good. 70 control. He's striking out more every single season. So he's gone, except for that one year. So we went 17, 19, 20, 22. His hits were as high as they were last season, which is the highest his batting average has been. But every other year it's low 200s to mid 200s. And he just limits quite a bit of base hits based on that control. He just doesn't have a ton of base runners. Doesn't walk a lot of guys. Doesn't give up home runs. So even if you get base hits, there's just going to be a lot of times where they just gets 1 or 2 outs. He lets out a base hit, gets out of the inning. So the whip's like 0.9 that one year. It's just crazy. It's just a fantastic pitcher. So those two are just going to be deadly with Jack Flaherty. That's probably the best threesome of pitchers we have in the league. Boston and Baltimore probably put up a fight for that, but all three of those teams just have ridiculous trios there. So really, really impressive. And then Asa Lacy rounding out the 4 there. And so some other moves he's made here. He picked up a lot just recently from the Yankees. He went and yesterday made a move, so that move hasn't gone through yet. Alex picked up Andre Lara. Lara was a guy that was in Pittsburgh before, and he traded for him back. So he gave up a ton of prospects for him. He gave up some really nice-looking guys. So to get, he got Lara, and then he also got Rosario here, fully retained here. So Alexander Rosario here. is just ridiculous. He's got an 80 slider, 75. So both those guys you can see are absolute flamethrowers with crazy velocity and crazy pitches. So really similar guys, just both strikeout kings. So that Pittsburgh rotation is just going to be really, really, really naughty and just completely revamped. I think the only guy back would be Flaherty and Lacey. So Asa Lacey. So he's just got a crazy new look pitching lineup. So it should rival the best in baseball. This guy is just going to be deadly. 70 stuff, 55 controls, such a nasty combo. Striking out like 22, probably going to get a lot higher when he plays a little better catcher. Gary Sanchez probably been holding these guys back quite a bit with his low defense catchability. I'd imagine when he goes and gets a little bit better catcher, he could probably strike out close to 27, 28%, walk probably about 8%, and then probably limit the home runs in Pittsburgh Stadium there from the Yankees, where they let up a lot of home runs. So I could see him just being absolutely amazing and getting like 4 or 5 WAR in Pittsburgh potentially. Probably the mean or medium would probably be about 3.5, but really, really talented pitcher. So in return, they gave the Yankees a lot of really nice prospects. The Yankees can kind of start to kickstart their rebuild a little bit. They've been waiting for that. So they got Maldonado, who's got really nice ratings. Guys that got ground ball profile, really good slider, really good movement, some nice looking stuff there with a lot of team control left. Nice cheap option for the Yankees, who are in financial trouble right now. They gave up a really nice looking player here, and Sergio Ramirez. They got 2 Ramirez's here. I was going to say that's not the batting champ, is it? So Sergio, the third baseman, has a really nice ratings. 80 infield arm, fly ball hitter. A really rare combination of 60 home run power, 55 void KE potentials. Those two combinations work really well together. Anytime the guy swings bat really hard and hits home runs, but also doesn't strike out a ton, they're going to have some really good stats. The guy should be able to be pretty much a major league level third baseman and get you 2 WAR. So if he got a little more range or a little more contact, this guy would be like a bona fide 3 or 4 WAR guy. Right now, he's probably more of just like a bit above replacement level with just doesn't have a ton of strengths other than his arm and his home run power. It's not a great runner, not a great range guy, not a great contact guy, which are 3 of the most important things, but he also is really good at some of the key categories. So interesting looking prospect there that just with just a little bit more progression turns into a really good player. And then you got Bill Rojas going the other way. Really, really nice looking reliever with some crazy fastball slider combination there. Has really nice 60 stamina as a reliever, so the guy should be able to pitch like multiple times per week for him. Really nasty there. And then we got Jim Spiva. Jim Spiva is a really nice prospect. I think he was a third base guy too. 40 range, 75 arm. Probably more of a right fielder. That 40 range is a tad low for third base. So the guy can play a really deadly right field, 75 arm there, and gets 65 home run potential and about 50 everywhere else. So this is a guy with a really high ceiling. If he can get that hit tool up to a 45 or 50, this is a guy that could hit you 30 home runs a year in right field with a huge arm and be a really serviceable player. But again, it's kind of the same as the guy before, Ramirez, where they're both pretty fringe, like replacement level players until they get a bit more contact. So if either of those guys can develop just a little bit more, they should be pretty solid. And then the big other prospect, and this is the high ceiling catcher, you get Danny Padilla, the handkerchief Prince. He is just unbelievable. The guy's got 35 contact, 35 contact, 35 home run power as a 17-year-old currents, which is very rare. There's very few 17-year-olds in the game. As you know, in the draft, when they're all 18, there's like only like about 4 or 5 high school guys in the draft per year that have 30 or 35 contact. So to have 35 power on top of that is like really special. Even the top college guys usually have 35 power currents that are like 4 years older than this. So a 17-year-old that has all those high currents already with solid potentials. Looks like the same profile as Gabriel Marino, the guy he traded away. Marino has 55 contact, 55 home run power, and 55 avoid K with about 60 ability. And if you look at the prospect we just talked about here, it's almost the same stuff, like 50, 55, 55. So pretty much like what Marino turned out to be, which is like a 3 WAR catcher every season. And TLG is about what Padilla looks like with his ceiling. He's a really talented dude. Could get even better than that too. Not quite the base runner that Marino is, but everything else is pretty similar there. The catchability is 55. Marino's is 60. So high work ethic too really helps. So really, really nice looking prospect there. He's worth the $5 million that Toronto paid for him, or however he's moved around, I think. But yeah, Toronto paid $5 million bonus for him. So a really talented dude, one of the best catching prospects we have. So that was a lot of big moves from Alex. I think there's probably a few more that I haven't talked about here. The shape. So we talked about the big ones there. Going back, I didn't really talk about the return for, and he picked up Rizzo too. So just like I said, Alex is making moves, my friends. So Alex picked up Anthony Rizzo also, a 75% retained. That was in that mega deal with the Mets. He gave up this Baxter prospect too, who's a really nice looking pitcher prospect. He has 50, 50, 70 potentials, 5 legitimate pitches. Changeup and curveball are pretty far behind, but at least one of those should probably turn out, odds are. So guy's got 80 stamina, 70 control, so it looks like a kind of like a budget Shane Beaver. Anthony Rizzo is going to Pittsburgh. That gives him a monster bat at first base or DH. This guy at 38 years old and 38 and a half still has crazy ratings. He still puts up 2.5 4 seasons every single year pretty much. The guy is a menace, still has 60 power, 60 contact. Guy should be able to hit 270, still hits you 25 bombs. The guy has just been unbelievable. He's a high leader, really close to a captain mentality. My scout things average, it might actually still be a captain there when that's updated, but really, really nice player. Brings some nice leadership there. Brings a big bat in the middle of that lineup. Pittsburgh hasn't had a ton of those last couple of years. They've been really defensive and pitcher oriented, so they haven't had those big like home run guys. So he kind of gives them a little bit what they've been missing there. Jeff Nagengast is another guy that went the other way. Really nice looking corner outfield prospect. Really close to being able to play center field. I think he was at 65 range potentially. But anyways, he's kind of a fringe. He could play a little bit of decent center field, but more of a corner guy. But he also has a really nice bat. 60 contact, 60 power. The guy produced really well last season. Had a 2.5 4 year in AA and only 88 games. The guy hit 295, double-digit home runs, almost 200 ISO, 137 at WRC+. Got caught stealing a lot, so we probably shouldn't steal so much. But yeah, this guy's just a really, really talented dude. Couldn't give you a really solid. In that big outfield, it's almost like a third center fielder there with the Mets, with the left and right fielder being so big, a big pitcher's stadium there. So he gives them some really nice range in the corner there. Kevin Thomas, another guy going back in that trade. Kevin Thomas is just a high contact, really nice second base prospect. A 70 range, almost can play shortstop, incredible utility guy, really good runner, really good line drive hitter with high gap power and high void K. So he should be able to hit a ton of doubles. This guy looks like a legitimate major league starter. So really, really big pickup there. That was one of the best prospects in the return there. I think he can come in right away and give you like a 2-WAR second base probably with how high that range is. Wouldn't hit for a ton of power, but should be able to hit for decent contact, hit like 260 with a bunch of doubles, and play really, really, really good, almost Gold Glove level defense, and probably be, like I said, 2 or 3 WAR player. Really like him a lot, and give you a really good backup at like a ton of different positions. And then they also gave up Jim Fish, who was the best reliever, one of the best relievers in the draft a couple years ago. Just an absolute monster there with 70 stuff potential, over the top sinker fastball, really nasty combo, good against both sides. He's 65 movement versus right-hand batters, and then he also has that crazy bunch 15 away from his ceiling in both his stuff and control. So already pretty solid. Could be really, really good if he reaches those ceilings. And then Jim Noel, all these guys have team control too. So the Mets picked up a ton of guys that don't have major league service time. That just going to give them a ton of value here. Jim Noel is another guy that can play second base, almost the exact same as Kevin Thomas, just not quite as rangy, not quite as good. Thomas had like 30 and 35 in these two categories, so he's just a bit worse than Thomas in all the categories we talked about, but still looks like a 21-year-old. This guy could be in the draft. He would have been a high school guy a couple years ago in the draft and got taken, let's see here, you won a Gold Glove second, but yeah, second round pick out of the draft in 2026 as a high school guy. So this would be his draft year coming up, I think, if he was a college guy, and so he would probably go pretty high. So also 65 hit tool, 75 OK, so should be able to hit for a really high batting average, give you solid defense there. So another really solid prospect. A lot of guys going back overall, and then the one guy we missed, I think, was Chris Escobar. Chris Escobar is a AAA guy. He is one of the best players from the draft that one year. He just never developed that third pitch, so he looks like more of a reliever at this point. But if he was able to develop that changeup later in his career, he could turn into a starter because he has that high stamina. But right now, he just looks like a really solid middle reliever. But it's too bad because he looks like he could be like a number 2 starter if he was to develop his control and movement. That 15 stuff he's missing off his potential is probably mostly tied up in his changeup. So he's only a 45 stuff guy right now. So like I said, he looks like more of a middle reliever, but the ceiling's there for him to be like a 3 or 4 WAR starter if he was able to get a third pitch. So he's just really, really something to keep an eye on. Some guys do develop that third pitch later, but if it's only a 25 at this age, it's looking more like maybe he's a middle reliever, but we'll see with him. Has a really nice profile, some good mentals, high intelligence, so he could always develop that pitch later. Always liked that guy in the draft. I thought he's one of the best pitchers in that draft at the time. I thought I had a 30 changeup on him when he was in the draft. But anyways, a lot of moves from Pittsburgh. I think that's pretty much it. This episode, we kind of went over those 2 big ones quite a bit. And then I'm just trying to think if we missed one. I think he picked up Manny Machado. Manny Machado is the other one. That was a big pickup. Manny Machado went from the Dodgers, and he's 100% retained, and he went to the Pirates. The Pirates gave up a couple small prospects for him. Really, Dodgers want to get him off the payroll and give their rebuild and give some young guys a chance. So they paid his salary at Pittsburgh couldn't afford. Pittsburgh picks up a very popular guy to get some butts in the seats, like Alex always says. Really nice looking profile, still third base with 60 power and plus defense. Still giving you like over 2 and 3 WAR seasons. Last year he hit 20 bombs and only 120 starts, so still has a little bit of juice left in him. Could probably still give you some output there. And then the other trade is the Pirates made a bunch of trades to clear up cap room. They gave up a couple guys like AJ Puck and some stuff to move up some cash for some of those big starting pitchers they brought in. So I think that is it for the big ones. Let me just look at the roster and see if I missed any mega deals here. Oh, they picked up Corona. This is probably the one I missed here. Yeah, so this one is, I try to remember which trade this was from. Give me a second here. Yeah, so this would have been the Rivas trade. So yeah, they gave up solid middle infield prospect. He's got like a really good approach, really good range, really solid defense profile at second base there. Give you a couple really productive seasons there for cheap. And in return, they just got some older guys, San Diego, who's looking to rebuild. So 100% retained 29-year-old catcher. Opitz, who's got really solid 3.5 WAR season, and he got injured almost all of last year after he got a nice email about his work ethic, unfortunately. So he is a really solid switch-in catcher with 55i, a really high defensive rating at catcher. So that was the guy they got 100% retained, bring in a veteran. And then Corona Jr. looks to be like their starting shortstop. The guy's a monster profile. He was one of the better players in the draft a couple years ago, went in the first round. The guy, a long time ago, actually, 2021, was a high school guy. So the guy's just slowly developed, and he's gotten a lot better defense in the draft. I think he had 60 range. I had him ranked as the number 1 second baseman way back in the day in that draft. He's gotten a lot better and turned into a legit shortstop. So the guy can play all over the field with a 50 bat. Really solid player. Should be able to give you some really solid third base and shortstop and second base defense there. And then the big one we missed was Gleyber Torres. Gleyber Torres is 60 contact, 65 power, really underproduced defensively, playing out of position at shortstop in New York. Just been one of the worst defenders in the history of baseball for a couple years in a row. I think he was minus 35 and minus 23 and minus 12 at defense the last 3 seasons. So it's probably the worst I've ever seen in my life. Minus 83 in total over TLG, just trotting him out shortstop year after year. So I think if he plays as normal position, which should be third base, he'd probably land that in spring training. 50 range, 65 arm, that's the third base profile. Also has really high turn double play, so could get away at second base, but probably be pretty weak there too with 50 range, pretty low. You want about 60 at second base. 65 ideal, 60 you can get away with. 55, 50 are pretty low. So the guy could give you a really good third base or DH or something, play some first base, wherever he wants to. He's just not a middle of the field guy anymore. The guy's got really elite bat though, so he can definitely play in the corner there. 65 power. He could hit like 35 home runs over a full season. I think he's had a little bit lower home run totals the last few years, but the Yankees teams haven't been so successful, so it kind of hurt him a little bit, I think. So really, really interesting. Pick up him, Bregman, and Rizzo. This gives them a ton of big bats there, especially with Willie Calhoun back again. EP Reese has a really good bat profile. So I'd imagine that Pittsburgh's going to have a lot better offense this year, and the defense might not quite be as elite, but it should still be solid enough with solid shortstop, solid second base, and solid, really good center fielder there. So anyways, that's it for Alex's episode. We got a full half an hour here pretty much just talking about his moves. A lot of moves I really liked. I think he brought in a ton of talent this season, and he is going to be definitely someone to look out for in competing with St. Louis, and him is just going to be a real tough one in the Central. Both those teams are so good. So really excited to see how that goes. Anyways, that's it for this episode. We'll make some more later. Cheers.